Hello, everyone, and welcome to this professional development training. My name is Stephanie. I'm your host and founder here at the Intentional IEP, and I'm so excited to be here with Byron today. We're going to be talking about less paperwork, which I know we all want, more heart work, which we're all doing, but really how special education teachers can leverage AI in the classroom and in everything that you're doing. Before we dive in, though, Byron, will you please share about you, your teaching experience, and your role at the IEP table?
Yes, awesome. And thank you so much, Stephanie, for having me. I have to say, I am somewhat of a fan. I guess I would say a full-fledged fan of what you're doing. I think it's important work that you are doing, helping educators, especially special education teachers, to have the tools and resources that they need. So I'm excited to be having this conversation because I really like the work that you are doing and helping people. And that's core of who I am. Before any of the professional things, I'm a helper. I'm a talker. My mission has always been to improve outcomes, especially for youth who look like me. And so professionally, that led me to becoming a school psychologist. And Stephanie, it's wild to believe that I'm 15 years in. So started back in 2010 as a
Same.
school. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. So 2010. Okay. So did graduate school. I'm telling you my whole life story. I
That's okay.
graduated undergrad in 2008.
hmm
And so finished high school 2004. I might be giving too much right now,
No, you
but
are all good. Man, you share whatever you want. We're good.
yeah. So are we on the same track? We're close
We're
in
close.
in
Yes.
that scope. We're
Yep.
close. We're close. All right. But started in 2010 as a school psychologist. And I worked at every single level from elementary all the way through high school, across all settings, suburban, rural, inner city, even did a little bit of time at a alternative school setting. But despite whatever setting I might have been in, my mission has always been the same. And so now it's evolved to reach more people, to scale up, leveraging different technology, which I'm sure we'll get in. But the core mission of my work has always been the same.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's dive into AI and education. I know this is, I don't want to call it a buzz word or phrase, but it is definitely a hot topic
Yeah.
in all aspects of education right now. So I want to start by talking about some misconceptions about AI and education. What are the misconceptions about AI in education right now, and how can special education teachers use it effectively without replacing that human connection?
Yeah, and this is a great starting point. And there's so many misconceptions about this technology. When people think of AI, they think of robots, they think of sci-fi, scary movies. And look, I don't blame people. It's from a lack of knowledge, it's from what we see in the media. And so when we connect that to schools and our work, we there's a lot of unknowns,
hmm
which is totally fair. Um, but I want people to know that despite those misconceptions, it's not scary. And
Yeah.
so I remember I did an entire series on AI is not scary. It's not this scientific thing. It's not this boogeyman. In fact, to put it in perspective, I'm a school psychologist. And so um, what the real boogeyman and scary thing is the fact of school psychologists leaving the field. And we could apply that more broadly of special educators who might be feeling the same stress and burnout and leaving the field. And I always ask people when we talk about these misconceptions of this technology, and one of the things that always comes up, Stephanie, is AI is going to take my job. At
Yeah.
least right
Oh,
now.
yep, I've seen that in social media groups, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah, and I will say for right now, I deal with data as a school psychologist. We got to look at
hmm
facts. And when we look at data, people have left the field, whether it's special education or school psychology, because of what? Stress, burnout, uh, disproportionate ratios. People have already left the field. And so in both of our fields, we have a recruitment and retention problem. No one has left the field as of yet because of artificial intelligence. And so when we can put these things into perspective, I want to push people towards becoming explorers. The reality is that there is a fear. One of the fears, there was a report that was done not too long ago about the misconceptions and about some of the fears. And one of the biggest fears from educators more broadly is of plagiarism, of cheating.
Yeah.
And Dr. Richard Collada, he put it very well. He's the president of ISTE and ASCD. And he said that the real fear is having bad tests. And I'm looking around. This was a room full of educators, and I'm looking around, and he was pushing our educational practices. That's another conversation. We don't have that much time. The point that he was making is if we're worried about plagiarism and kids cheating, kids have always plagiarized. Kids have always cheated. And so, again, it's putting these things into perspective. And I want to shift people. How can we start looking at this technology as a way to support the work that we're doing, as a mechanism to keep us in the field, to alleviate the tedious tasks, the paperwork, the stress, the burnout, so that we can actually get to the work that we were called to be in this field in the first place?
I'm going to admit something, and I always say this, I will never throw anyone under the bus but myself. Until recently, probably within the last 3 months, didn't use AI for anything. But when I tell you, when I started using it, I was like, where has this been my whole life? Do you know how much time that I have saved by just using it for simple prompts? And I just mean like social media captions, like simple things, or even like helping me word something in a more professional way, because I'm real quick and I'll spit off something and I'm very direct. And so that doesn't always come off very well when I'm feeling certain types of way, like how a lot of special education teachers and parents feel in IEP meetings. And so I'm like, I need you to help me make this sound a little bit more professional and not so angry or not so emotional. And so I'm a huge proponent for AI in education just because I know for me how much time it has helped me save and how much more professional it's helped me sound in certain times. Um, so what are maybe some first steps that teachers can take to begin integrating AI into their daily practice without feeling overwhelmed?
Yeah, and I think that's a great story that you just shared about, and being very honest that we might hear these things about the technology, but until you give it a try yourself, you don't fully understand. And
Hmm.
so I tell people to become explorers, to be curious, to think about what are specific instances, what are specific use cases that I do every single day in my role? And then what are some things that if I had an intern, if I had a professional bestie or assistant that I would give to this assistant or intern? And when you can think about those things, you can now start to pass some of those things off to the technology. But
Ooh.
even before you do that, I would tell people that you have to be knowledgeable about what this technology is and what it is not. Well, Byron, what do you mean? Here's what I mean. I have been pushing for what's called AI literacy before you even get to getting into these different models and testing it out. What AI literacy is basically developing an understanding of what this technology is. AI is artificial intelligence.
Hmm.
You are now having natural language conversations with these intelligent systems that are mimicking the intelligence of people.
Yeah.
But we got to understand what it is first. We have to understand what are the use cases of this technology. We have to develop a good understanding of the ethics, the privacy, the security of it. And then when we can have an understanding that it's just how me and you are having this conversation right now, like these models can be your intern or your professional bestie. Now you can get in and begin giving it prompts, giving it small tasks like, hey, I need help with the recommendation. I want to write this email to this teacher who is getting on my nerves and talking bad about kids in the break room. And I got this email and I'm about to hit send. But before you do that, let's go to these AI models, say, hey, word this in a way so I don't get fired.
Yeah.
And now because we have the AI literacy, we can understand these models can do that in Stephanie in seconds.
Oh, it's wild.
In seconds.
Yeah. It's
So, yes,
incredible how fast they work and how
it's
well it works when you have the literacy behind it to help you.
yes. And for me, that's why I went when you asked this question, what are first steps? I want people to have a basic understanding of this technology. And in the show notes and the description, I'll share a resource and I provided people with a way to increase their AI literacy. And in fact, depending on when you're listening to this episode, I just put out an AI literacy resource that has a ton of use cases, of examples, of YouTube videos, tutorials, demos of how you can increase your AI literacy. And then I put it inside of a one pager, so everything is there. It's you literally click the link, it takes you to it. But we have to start with AI literacy.
Yes, we have that linked in the video description below. Sorry, there is a little fly buzzing in my face. But the link is linked below here for that AI literacy. You can definitely click and go check it out after you finish watching this video here. Well, let's talk about, so we know first step, AI literacy, and then as teachers, we can move into using that AI to help us be more effective and efficient in the classroom with all of the things. So how can we use AI to enhance that individualized instruction or that adaptive learning for our students with disabilities?
Oh my goodness, this is such an important question. One of the best ways is with differentiating instruction. And as an example, you might have a third grade student, let's say a fifth grade student, who might have a IEP for a specific learning disability with reading comprehension. What you can do is you can take a lesson that you've been given that's at a high level, fifth grade reading level, but the student might be reading on a third grade reading level. And you can take that lesson and say, hey, Sophia is our conversational chatbot. Say, Sophia, I need you to differentiate this lesson that is for a fifth grader, but it needs to be at the third grade reading level. And Sophia will differentiate that lesson for you in seconds.
That's wild.
It's no guesswork, it's exactly what you need. But then why would you stop there? Once Sophia differentiates that lesson for you, then you could say, hey, now I need you, if the student likes, I'm a Commanders fan, right? Worked in DC schools. And so we have a lot of kids who are Commanders fans, and ironic enough, Cowboys fans, but we're not going to talk about the Cowboys. Let's
I
stay
like the
focused.
Cowboys though, but I know that they're not that great. But okay, it's a whole other conversation. You can yell at me about it later, but go
It's okay.
Cowboys.
It's okay. Whatever your team is, you could say, hey, let's talk about how the Commanders always destroy the Cowboys.
They do
And
every
now you can you can integrate the kids' interests directly inside of that differentiated lesson. Another example is IP goals. Say, hey, Sophia, or whatever model or platform you're using to help you develop IP goals, IP objectives, accommodations, recommendations. If you can think it, then you can have these models to help you with it. And I tell people just go in, be an explorer, and have these models, give it a task and have it execute for you. And keep talking. If it doesn't work the first time, keep talking to it in a natural, conversational way until you get exactly what you want.
That's such great advice because and I, again, will throw myself under the bus and never anybody else. When I first started using AI, I would put things in and I'm like, That's not really how I would word it. But then as I have used it more and more, I'm like, let's tweak it. I want you to use this tone, or let's use these keywords, or I have this specific skill, for example, that I want the IEP goal to be. Here's the standard for the grade level. Here's where the student's baseline is. What should my objectives be? And
Yes,
when you know this in the back of your mind and you're like, okay, I didn't word it correctly for it to understand what I wanted the output to be, you can get much better outputs. Just keep rewording it. Like Byron said, keep rewording it, use different phrases, but keep having the conversation with it because it's learning at the same time it's trying to pull information for you.
that's right. And what we're talking about is prompting, and how you prompt these models is very important. And Stephanie, that's why I said we have to start with AI literacy. In that AI literacy resource guide, I provide a document of how to prompt and some of my favorite prompts. And again, you're having this conversation as you're prompting so that you can get the best response back. What I found, people, they treat it like Google,
Yeah.
which that's what we know. We know search engines. And so you might search for something and then expect a long list of different links.
Hmm.
With these models, and I keep saying conversational for a reason. It's like you're having a conversation and you have to be very clear. Here's how Byron McClure, how I want people to prompt and how I prompt. If let's say we're using ChatGPT, a lot of people use ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude. These are different models. You give it a task, okay? And so, what do you mean by a task? It might be your task is to help me develop an IEP goal. All right, that's a very straightforward task. And then you give context to that task. Your task is to help me develop an IEP goal for a fifth grade student who is reading at a third grade level and who has trouble with reading comprehension in these areas. So now you've given context. Then, after you give context, you give the outputted format that you want whatever model to return the format in. And so you might say, return this in bullet format, return it in a clear, easy to read paragraph format, whatever the output format is that you want, and then hit submit. And as you prompt, you can see what you like. It should follow those instructions, but if you don't, keep tweaking it. And then what in our platform, we have a save prompt feature. Once you get prompts that you like, you can save those prompts. And that way you can keep using them over and over again. If you're using another platform, you could just I use a notes feature. Now I have
Yeah.
all my notes that I love or all my prompts that I love in these notes. But get those prompts. Once you learn how to prompt, the sky is the limit and you keep tweaking them.
I love that you mentioned that school psych AI does save the prompts, but also if you're using another system, just save it in notes because once you find that prompt for present levels or for IEP goals and objectives, once you get the prompt to where it needs to be to get the output that you want, ooh, the amount of time you're going to save, it's going to be silly. You're going to be like, Stephanie and Byron, why didn't we do this sooner? Like,
Exactly. And then you'll know AI isn't scary. It's
yeah,
going to be your best friend that you will tell all your deepest, darkest secrets to. You can edit that out if you need to, but you will be going to these models for everything.
everything,
And like
everything.
one of my favorite prompts, is I have my preferred way of writing. And so I have my favorite prompt. I have a couple, but I tell Sophia or ChatGPT how I want it to respond in my
Hmm.
writing style. And these models can get really lengthy in their responses. And so I'm giving y'all some gold right now. One of my absolute favorite prompts is simply no yapping.
Oh,
No yapping.
okay.
And Stephanie, what happens? The model, it just gives you the answer that you need.
Okay.
No yap.
I'm gonna start using that because sometimes ChatGPT goes on a tangent and it's related, but I'm like, I didn't ask for that, man. Like,
Right.
no yapping. I'm gonna start
Right.
using that and see
It's
what
one of my favorites. Yeah, absolutely.
good old Chatty G says after that. That's what I call
Yeah.
ChatGPT now is Chatty G because the amount of stuff I use it for is obscene. But
Yes.
well, let's talk about using AI for data collection and an analysis to monitor student progress efficiently. I will say I have played around with throwing sample data points into ChatGPT and having it graph it for me,
Yeah.
and it actually did that for me. But what recommendations do you have for using AI with data and data analysis?
Okay, this is one of my favorite, slightly more advanced use cases, but a lot of people might use CSV files or Excel sheets or whatever. Earlier, I said that, and this is why AI literacy is important. These models deal with language. And so you can copy all of that information from CSV files, Excel sheets, Google Sheets, whatever it is, paste it inside your preferred platform, then say, hey, run an analysis based on this data. What are the most important things I need to know from this data? What are areas of concern based
Hmm.
on this data? What are recommendations? And now, instead of you, because there's multiple aspects of data analysis, right? It's the data collection, it's analyzing the data, it's turning it into actionable insights and actually doing something with that data. But now, again, it cuts down that time to a fraction. Upload that data and tell it what you want it to do. And in my district, I was responsible for MTSS. And so part of that was the data analysis. And what would take me, this is not hyperbole or an exaggeration, what would take me months, looking at school discipline data as an example, and I would calculate risk ratios and risk indices to understand discipline trends. It would take me months. And now I can do that in a matter of seconds.
My husband works in the transportation industry, and so sometimes he has to analyze all of their data to make decisions about do we spend money? Do we cut spending? Do we need to hire additional drivers? I know that he uses Gemini, and I know that it has helped cut down, like just even having it analyze and do all of the things for that. Like it does the work of so many people, which is it really is kind of scary. But there's still that human aspect where you have to go through and understand what it's
That's
saying
right.
and then process that and then turn that into, especially for IEP meetings, right? So you can put all of your data into AI, analyze this. What is this? What are the next steps? But you, as the human, still have to connect it to the present levels, to the student's current evaluation, the grade level standards. What are they doing in the classroom? What is their baseline to determine what comes next? Just because it comes out of an AI doesn't mean that's what you should be doing. There's still always going to be that human aspect of AI. We are still always going to be needed, which I guess loops back into that fear. We were talking about the misconceptions of AI eventually taking over our job.
You're right. And to me, that's the beauty of if we can tap into this technology. Because in this example of the data analysis, what I said would take me months to reach a conclusion and then share those findings with leadership, then trickle down finally to the school-based teams. Now, if I'm doing this in seconds or minutes or hours or even a week, now I have that time where I can actually get engaged in consultation, where I can actually get into the classroom and support teachers and school leaders to actually now let's move to what are the recommendations? What are the actionable things that we can now do? Why? Because we have the time to do it now. And so I don't want us to be fearful of this technology. I want us to understand the risk and using it in a responsible way. I want us to understand the limitations. But if we can do that in a responsible way and then leverage the power of it, like it's going to allow us to make a difference in the lives of young people. And especially as we're talking about young people who have IEPs and who are in special education, like we are going to see tremendous amounts of growth that I think is truly unprecedented that we haven't really been able to see in education.
We're actually Teachers are actually going to be able to teach again if we can use it responsibly and leverage it in the responsible manner and appropriate way. We'll get to do what we love again.
Can you imagine that?
It's
Teachers being able to teach?
I think part and back to the whole, it's a whole other sidetrack conversation of why teachers are leaving in droves from the field. But I think this taps into that a little bit.
Yeah, it does. And people are stressed, frustrated, and also they know what can be done. Look, teachers have done so much with so little for so long. And now we don't have to operate that way anymore.
Hmm.
And so I see a future where we can really leverage this in a way that can be transformative and really get at the core doing some neat things for people.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's talk about ethical considerations then. We're talking about using AI responsibly. So, what are some ethical considerations and data privacy concerns that teachers need to keep in mind when we're using AI in the classroom?
Yeah, this is when I started using AI with my company. That was about a little over a year ago. And
Okay.
so in the AI world, we're veterans. In the grand scheme of life, like we're still a very young company. But the number one question would be is AI going to take my job? We've talked about that. But then what are the data privacy security concerns around this technology? And
Hmm.
so it's something that is very important, and we should all be asking that question. The reality is that we all have an ethical obligation to ensure the privacy of students and to protect student data. Whether you're a psychologist, a special education teacher, we all have governing bodies, we all have district policies that we have to adhere to. And the reality is, protecting student data has always been one of them.
Hmm.
Now, with artificial intelligence, those same rules still apply, but we also must be considerate of that. You referenced Gemini, I've referenced ChatGPT and Claude, and now there's a host of other platforms. Educators, teachers, psychologists should not be inputting students' personal identifiable information, or PII for short, into platforms that do not adhere to the highest standards that are out there. Well, Dr. McClure, what do you mean? Well, as an example, School Psych AI, our platform, our conversational chatbot is Sophia. We went through a 3 month long independent evaluation um, because you can't take my word for it. You shouldn't take anybody else's word for that we're protecting student data. If somebody says that to you, you should ask them how. You should ask them, have you been independently evaluated? You should ask them, show me your terms of service. Y'all, commercial break. Read the terms of service, y'all. Look, Stephanie, I don't know if we just that box comes up on any new platform you're in. You just check it and keep
Hmm.
moving. You're signing your life away. Read the terms of service, okay? Now back to our regularly scheduled program. Now, you're reading the terms of service, you got the privacy policy. Those are telltale signs. And we went through an independent evaluation to confirm that we are adhering to the highest standards. Well, what are the highest standards inside of schools? Is FERPA. And so we have a stamp of approval from an independent evaluator called I Keep Safe, which says that, hey, we are doing what we say we're doing. We are standing on ensuring student privacy, and we take it as a key to what we're doing here. Well, what does that mean for other platforms like ChatGPT and Gemini? Those are massive platforms. And the reality is, you cannot guarantee, and you really should not be inputting student PII into those platforms. Now, if you're, I know that there's some Microsoft districts, there's some Google districts, and you might have certain agreements and NDPAs, and I don't want to bore your audience about those terms, but it's important to know. And if there are agreements in place, follow those agreements and adhere to those. And if not, then it is still imperative that you have an understanding of what data and privacy and security and safety and ethics and what all of these things mean. And I'll share, we convened a School Psych AI Ethics Council, and it's for educators broadly, of what educators should be doing to ensure that they are protecting student data and privacy and security. So we have an ethical guidance document available on our website, and it's in that AI literacy resource as well.
I love that this whole conversation truly stems from first we have to be literate in AI before we can do anything else.
To me, it's a non-negotiable. I want people, and like I said, we've been doing this for a little over a year, which is we're veterans in this AI space. Um, and I've been fortunate to speak with educators across the country, and we even have international users. And what I found is that we are only at the tip of the iceberg in terms of educators in our use of AI. Like, we're just getting started.
Hmm.
And there's so much collectively that we have to learn about this technology. And so what I'm telling people is, okay, the technology is advancing so fast and so rapid. It's hard for even for myself to keep up with the latest updates. However, if we can start with learning the basic fundamentals, then we'll be ahead of the curve. Well, we'll be doing okay. And that's another important part. It's only if you read this AI literacy resource today and you don't read it again, and we're updating it all the time or watching for updates, and you come back in 3 months, this is going to be outdated. And that just underscores how fast this technology is really updating. So we have to not only increase our AI literacy, but we have to continuously be learning about best practices related to the use of this technology.
Well, what would you say is your best piece of advice for truly leveraging AI in the special education classroom, but just within education as a whole?
Yeah, that's a good question. The best advice is okay. I personally struggle with writing. I can speak, I can one of my I'm big on knowing your strengths, and one of my top strengths is woo, which is the ability to win over others, the ability to influence the talk. I'm great with that. But if you say, Byron, put everything that you said during this episode on paper, wait, you want me to do what?
Yeah.
Definitely, I'm gonna struggle. So finding what you're not necessarily the best at, what you might struggle with, and then things that are monotonous, and then see how AI can help you with that. And so where I might struggle with there and understanding loose versus lose and how to put that in a sentence, well, I'll just put that into ChatGPT.
Hmm.
Or if I'm struggling with writing an email, and I know that I might get easily frustrated and impatient, then I'll plug it in, right? And then in my practice, what are things that I do every single day? What are the tasks that you do every single day? List those. seriously, if you're watching this episode, list out three things that you do every single day. That's just monotonous, the routine things. Okay, now that you have those things written down, what can be outsourced to your special education AI bestie, to your AI intern, and test it out? And that leads to my next piece of advice is you have to be an explorer with this technology. You have to stay curious. That might mean letting down some of the opposition or barriers that you have with this technology, which is hard. And I understand that. But this technology is here, and I don't believe it is going anywhere. And I think the faster that you can find very specific use cases for your work, the more willing you will be to try it. And then my last piece of advice is to allow this technology to help you in your role, whatever your role might be. It shouldn't replace it. It shouldn't replace your instincts. It shouldn't think for you, but it should be a supplement on your journey to do what you were called to do in this work in the first place.
That's powerful. And I also, teachers that are listening and you're like, oh, my three things, like, what do I do all the time that's super monotonous? I will share two things. Well, one thing for me that I absolutely hated doing in the classroom, progress report notes. Hated them. I am the person that submits them at 7:59 a.m. when they're due at 8 a.m. And I don't like doing that in real life. It gives me anxiety to be late. I hate it. Progress report notes were my kryptonite. And so you can use AI to help you with wording things in your progress reports. Also, if you are learning more about writing strengths-based IEPs and student-based IEPs in that language, and you're like, I have no idea how to word this. I'm going to link blog posts below here at the Intentional IEP, but you can also use AI to have it help you write in that language style versus the deficit-based language that we see in special education. So
Yeah, and
just
you
my
see
two
me
little tips.
smiling. Like I love strength-based everything. So I'm glad you're speaking that language. And we built out a tool called the strength-based generator. And you put in
Ooh.
deficit-based language, and it shifts that language from what's wrong to what's strong.
Well, okay, so let's talk about school psych AI then. Well, first of all, thank you so much for being here and just sharing your knowledge about AI. But you are the creator of School Psych AI. So tell us a little bit more about it. We have it linked below here. There's a free 14-day trial. We have the AI literacy linked below here. So fill us in on what School Psych AI is, why you developed it, where it came from, what it can help us with, and also just all the things.
Yeah, I struggle as a writer, as a psychologist. One of the things that we're known for is evaluating kids and then writing 30, 40, 50
Yeah.
page reports that nobody reads. And
Yeah.
so not only that, they're also steeped in deficit language.
Hmm.
And I said early on back to in 2010 that I was not going to be a practitioner who stayed in my office, who wrote 30-page reports that identify the worst in kids that people won't read. And that is not my zone of genius. And I struggle with that. And so I always practice as a psychologist in a non-traditional way, engaging in practices that I felt was always in the best interest of students and teachers to help them do their job. And that led me to do some really cool things. Literally wrote a book on hacking deficit thinking, and I travel a lot. I'm doing speaking engagements to help people just in my non-conventional approaches to education, but helping youth to improve outcomes, which has always been my mission. And Stephanie, I would go literally from LA to Florida to New York to Nova Scotia. and I would give the speech of a lifetime. I would motivate, energize people. They would always look at me and say, okay, but how? I
Mhm.
am stuck in my office doing 30-page reports. And
Yeah.
so literally, I had to go into the future with artificial intelligence and this technology to go back to move the field forward to where we need to be. We
Hmm.
should not be spending every waking hour, whether you're a psychologist, special education teacher, general education teacher, educator in general, spending all of our time doing paperwork. We did not get into the field to do it. Our young people need us to do our jobs in a very real way. So I created this platform to help us do our jobs in a meaningful way. And it's personal for me because I struggle, like I said, as a writer in all of these elements. And I see my colleagues struggling and I see people I know. I shout out to one of my practicum students. She got into the field and she left because she said this is not for me. And so I created this platform to give people the tools that I need for our young people to do to to grow, to learn, to be great students, for teachers to have access to the tools to actually help them do their job. And I'm so passionate about it because we are still so far away from actualizing that vision that I have of doing this work. And so I created this platform so that educators can outsource the things that we just shouldn't be spending our time doing. And in that time, like I said, I created it about a year ago. So January, we uh, officially pushed it out January of 2024. And we are in almost every state. We're international and we are growing. Um, but the mission has always been the same, which is to improve outcomes for people. And I'm sticking to that. And I am even more on fire now than I've ever been because we're so close. And that's why I'm doing this, Stephanie.
I think we are, and I'm very much with you. I am all about, I love the paperwork. Like that makes me really happy, like just organizing all the, and I'm the weirdo. I'm full on understanding that I am the weirdo special education teacher who loves writing IEPs. Like I know that I am over here by myself and I am completely cool with that. And so that is actually why I created the intentional IEP because I know that so many teachers hate writing IEPs, like truly do not like it. And so my mission when I started the intentional IEP will be 5 years old here in like 3 weeks. But my mission has always
Congrats.
been to save time, reduce stress, and feel more confident but get back to doing what we got into teaching to do, and that was to teach. It wasn't to do the paperwork. So, how do you do that more effectively and efficiently? And so that is why and that's how I mean the same reason that school psych was built and born is the same reason that the intentional IEP was born to share knowledge and get us back to doing what we all got into education to do, and that was to work with the kids.
I love it.
So yeah, I know. Like this is meant to be. I'm 100% here for this.
Awesome, awesome. And I know we can do it. And I think you have to have ambitious goals that are realistic and practical, and help people ultimately at the end of the day. So like I said, I'm a fan of what you're doing and I love what you're doing. And we have a lot of work that we need to do.
We got it. We're going to make it happen. I know that we are in our lifetime. We are going to see a huge change in education. We're going to make big positive waves in special education and just education in general. I'm very excited about it to see where it goes. But thank
Awesome.
you so much, Byron, for being here and just again sharing your knowledge and expertise about AI, sharing school psych AI with us. Don't forget, those of you watching, that we have the School Psych AI website linked below here. We have the AI literacy link for you to go learn more and become more literate in using AI, whatever that looks like in your classroom or life. There's also the free 14-day trial, so that is linked here as well. And I've also linked some other things at the Intentional IEP for you, progress report comments, strengths-based language and IEPs. We have an intentional data collection course because we did talk about collecting data. And then I'm going to link FERPA for you if you have no idea what that is. I think that's really important because we talked about confidentiality and ethical considerations and student privacy. So I'm going to link what FERPA is, and you can read more information about that. So don't forget to check the links here below this training so you can keep continuing to learn more, and also check out School Psych AI while you're at it. So thank you again, Byron, so much for being here, and we'll see you guys in the next training.